It's something that no one knew who the leader was, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Who is he? Where is he from? Who are his teachers? What is his lineage? Who praises him? None of that is known. So indeed, there is a great difference between the affair of this claim to be an Islamic state and the affair of our beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. All of them were known. So there's no way that they can compare themselves, which they do. And it's not surprising, as we're going to discuss. It's not surprising, as we're going to discuss, but I'll mention it in very brief. If you read what has been said by them, it is as if they're making the claim that they are better than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning better than the state that he established, better than the rulership of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The way they constantly refer back to what they have established, and they said, and if we were to look at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we find that there's less fear in the people that are under our rulership than the time of the Prophet, and they continue to do so. And that's not something surprising, as we're going to mention. With that being the case, we will first say that point that we mentioned, and that is the ignorance. This was the way of the Khawarij. Them to be ignorant, them to lack knowledge. And we must ask ourselves, who are the scholars that have supported, who are the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah that have supported this group? Who are their scholars? Because when we actually read, when we actually go into one of the books, or small treaties that one of them has written by his own initiative, we'll find that there's no one who is known. We will find that there's no one who is known. That is totally unacceptable in Islam, that we take knowledge from individuals who are unknown, that we open our ears and open our hearts and we give anyone the ability to pollute our religion. Imam Muhammad ibn Sirin rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned, إِنَّ هَذَا الْعِلْمِ دِينٌ فَانْظُرُ عَمَّنْ تَأْخُذُ دِينَكُمْ. Verily, this religion is your deen. Verily, knowledge is your deen. So look at who you take your knowledge from. With that being the case, I'm going to mention there is one treatise, a small treatise, not too big. There's one treatise that one of their followers has gathered and compiled. And that's going to be the core of what we discuss in this lecture. The title of that treatise is إعلام الأنام بميلاد دولة الإسلام, which is informing the creation of the birth of the Islamic State. Informing or declaring to the creation the birth of the Islamic State. Now, I would like to mention an author, but the author is unknown. And that's what I mentioned. It's not permissible for us as Muslims to take our religion, to seek knowledge from an individual who is unknown. We don't know if this individual could be a munafiq, this individual could be a Jew or a Christian, this individual, anyone. We don't know. So how can a group claim to have ultimate authority over the Muslims and claim to be a legislated Islamic state, not in Iraq and Syria, but in the world, claim to be a legislated Islamic state, and they produce, or one of their followers produces a 75-page treatise, and we don't know who he is, and you're claiming to the world, you're claiming to the Muslims of the world that it is obligatory for them to follow you. That's a problem. In the beginning of this treatise, that I'll go through a few pages of, and I didn't have time to go through the full treatise, but bi'idhnillah, myself or some of the other brothers, and of course, even before us, the ulama, I'm sure the ulama are dissecting this as we speak. The author, before we go into the book, the author did not do an introduction. or he did an introduction, but before the author does an introduction, there's a muqaddimah of a muhaddis al-rasmi. There's an official spokesman. There's an official spokesman for that which they call their ministry of media. Okay, so this official spokesman has a muqaddimah to this treatise. And after he says Bismillah, he mentions a few ayats, then he goes on to say, أصل هذا الكتاب كتبه أحد أبناء الهيئة الشرعية. The origin of this book was written by one of the members of the Islamic sector, like Islamic sector, like the Islamic department. But he doesn't say who he is. He doesn't mention his name. And this is an Islamic state that has authority over all of the Muslims of the world, and we don't know who this book is being written by. Fine, let's continue. So the asl of this book is written by one of the members of the Islamic department. وَبِمُبَادَرَةٍ مِّنْهُ, he took it as his own initiative to write this treatise, which is a 70-something page treatise about the great Islamic state which has arisen. His own initiative. I'm going to stop there. His own initiative, meaning, and at present, to the best of my knowledge, at present, this is probably one of the only documents, official documents by way of this Islamic state that informs of some of their legitimate status and the likes of that. Right? It was this individual who wrote it. It's his own initiative. It's his own initiative. It wasn't, notice that this official spokesman did not say that we were seeking it from him, or that we requested it, or that we ordered the Islamic department to write something. No, it was his own initiative. Why? Because they're ignorant. How can you start an Islamic state and make such a claim, and you don't have scholars, you don't inform who the scholars are, you don't have text? This was written after they had already announced that the Islamic State is established. So you establish something without having proven it. You establish something without informing who your scholars are. You establish something, and the Muslims of the world who you are calling to obey you are totally ignorant of anything about you. Is that the way of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions? No, that's the way of the Khawarij. That's the way of the Khawarij. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned about them in his book Minhaj al-Sunnah. He said, فَهُمْ جُحَالٌ فَارَقَ السُنَّةِ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ عَنْ جَهْلٍ. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned pertaining to them, he said, verily they are ignorant. They have opposed the Sunnah and the Jama'ah because of their ignorance. They have opposed the Sunnah and Jama'ah because of their ignorance. And indeed, that's something which is apparent. It was something which is apparent during the time of the Khawarij, during the beginning, and it is something which is apparent to is such group.